This is the second week of your 90-day curriculum. We're going to focus now on Sunim Tao's movements 5 through 16, and then after that, we'll circle back with some details. 5 with your left hand. Make sure you're pointing here, elbow is down. 6, make sure your wrist is straight, make sure your elbow came behind it. 7, extend. 8, up, and when you come up, fully lock your arm. This is for extension and understanding how to keep this back and down as you go. 9 is here. Notice that my elbow stays still. 10. And then from here, it's just the other side. 11. 12. 13. 14. 15. 16. Okay, now I'm going to go into some detail about these first 16 moves of Sunim Tao. I want you to understand the reasonings behind them so that you can appreciate why you're doing them. There are reasons for every single movement. Starting with number 1. Number 1, as you come out, you're unrolling what I call unrolling the carpet. You're unrolling this here. Keep your fist straight, so you're practicing keeping this straight, keeping your shoulder in place, keeping your elbow down, keeping everything in one spot as you open. Unroll each point. There can be a time where you may need to use just part of your hand. It may be a time where you need to keep this straight but then open it and keep it still connected the entire time. So that's 1, independence of the movement. 2, you're going to find the center down low. Don't think of this as too much other than that. We're never going to do a double strike like this. There are some martial arts that teach you to do this against some kind of kick, and that's awful because if you're doing that, then you're very liable for things that could come up into your head. So what you want to try to do is you would never do one hand. If you did do, or 2 hands, if you did do one hand, you'd have another hand ready to stop something. So this is just finding the center. Also find your position of not being too close with your elbows. That would be called chokyu. Come out here just like this. Okay? Find the center in front of you. And this is a good low spot for you to remember. Don't go down here too much because then you lose that elbow. Very important. The second or the third movement is then here. So now, generally, as we're doing that, we're keeping a very strong elbow. Strong elbow here, strong elbow here. So if somebody were to press on your elbow, or even press in between the 2 arms, you'd have structure. My lats are engaged down, and then I come up. Pointing these forward, not too far back here. You would never have your hands like this. If someone's pressing here, you would just come right into your face. So you want to keep these out and direct them to the other person. Down low, direct it. Up high, direct it. You're now finding the zones of your attack and defense. You wouldn't come to a zone that's out here, right? That would be too wide with your elbow. So think of the inbounds. The inbounds is shoulder to hip. Shoulder to hip are the out of bounds line. Don't have your elbows too far out. Also down here is another out of bounds line. So if you look at, call it the strike zone if you will, or the gates. You want to be here. There's your low spot and there's your top spot. There's not really too much outside of that. Maybe a few exceptions, but if you get good in this area, you'll get very efficient at handling things. So then 3 and 4 is coming straight back. When you come straight back, you're teaching yourself to move backwards. This chambering of the hand teaches you that idea of elbow guiding the movement. Okay? In addition to that, I'm also thinking of the ulna line as I do this. So, thinking of maybe grabbing and pulling back. Okay? As I did that, you also want to try to keep your wrist as straight as you can as you practice. This chamber position has a finger width between the fist and the chest. Don't rest it on your chest. You're missing the point of trying to feel keeping your hands in a position, right? Then they're just kind of dead, right? A lot of people just do this. Keep them back, okay? And really work on the mindfulness and awareness of keeping it in a certain position. This is what this is for. It's also keeping the shoulders back and down. Then you're going to have the fifth move. And the fifth move comes here. What you're doing here is you're finding the center. All right? Finding the center. For the most part, when we punch, we're not going to come here and then out there. But what it's teaching you is that punches, the saying is, punches come from the heart. Or basically, they're coming from your center into their center. And if you can ride that central plane between you and their center, then you're taking the most efficient line. I also call that the freeway because it's open. It's almost always free because most people can't defend that, nor do they even think of defending their central plane. So come here and then notice that I'm already pointing this joint. All right? So I'm pointing this joint, the wrist joint, towards this. Even though I don't feel like I can point this towards where I'm headed yet, I'm pointing what I can. And that's another concept that is within the Sunum Tao that you're learning is point to them what you can at all times. Point straight to them. Don't have it going this way or anything like that. I can point this. Even as this is fully back here, I can start to point. Now the next thing I want to try to do, I want to travel my wrist along the central plane, that central plane. Then as I'm traveling it, I'm trying to get my elbow behind that wrist to drive it. I don't want to do this because now I'm not leading with the elbow. The elbow, think of the elbow like it's always down. It's like the engine on a boat, right? The engine's on the back of the boat. This is the bow or the front, and you're dipping that into the water and pushing forward. Another analogy you can use is a fencing sword. This is the handle. In order to pierce someone, you're not going to go this way to do it. You're going to come behind it. Get that elbow low and behind it. As you do that, I also want your shoulder back and down. We call this the cramp. Basically, you're taking your shoulder blade or your scapula and you're tucking it under. Very similar to what we do in our pelvis, where we do a pelvic tilt. We tuck it under in order to connect it to the ground. We're tucking the scapula under in order to connect it to the pelvis. So it comes out and the punch comes out right here. All right, so that was 6. 5, 6. Also notice the straightness of this. Don't go like this, and if you are starting to do that, there's a lot of developmental things that happen during your Sunum Tao. If you're doing things that I'm telling you not to do, but yet you can't help it, that's perfectly fine. This is a developmental thing. Just know that you're trying you're trying to get better and develop those things. Okay? So 6, 7. The 7 here is opening. Again, keeping the straight wrist. Notice that that's coming often. Another thing that I did that I forgot to mention in 6 was I kept my crease of my elbow facing up, and the point of my elbow, which is basically the point of the elbow down here, is the ulna bone that comes down this, facing down. There's another bone on the inside we call the funny bone, or it's the epicondyle of the humerus. Funny bone's fine. Here, right here's the funny bone. Here is the elbow bone or the ulna. The two are right here. Find them on yourself so you can become aware of these bones, so you know where they're facing when you're practicing your Sunim Tao, when you're sparring, when you're doing your drills, when you're doing your dummy, all this stuff. The funny bone needs to be turned up as much as possible. So not here, here. See how that funny bone is being turned up? That's what you want to do. So as you go from 5 to 6, my funny bone's right turning up and getting a spiraling power coming in. 7 still stays up. 8 still stays up. Now, here's a really, really hard part of Sunim Tao that's going to develop your independence. As you're doing number 9, your shoulder is down and back. It's very, very difficult to have your shoulder down and back as your arm is fully extended. You'll do this at first because you haven't developed the independence to do it. So, work on that. Get that shoulder back and down. Keep this crease facing up the whole time, but fully extended. Don't have any kind of bend, and make sure you're out of your bicep all the way. And then from here, keep this still, and move this. You can even take a finger and put it underneath your elbow to see if that elbow joint is moving or not. This is going to be huge when you develop the ability to do this, because it means you can keep the shoulder in place. You can also extend the elbow fully out towards them while also having control of the hand. So an independence, really, really, really great for your Sunim Tao, and something we develop. It'll help you with Jiao Saos, it'll help you with Tan Saos, it'll help you wedge under and inside. Really, really, really great. So you're going to do the same thing on the other side as you go 11 through 16. It's just the same explanation. So lots of details. Don't get overwhelmed. Do what you can. Review this video as much as you need to in order to keep all these things in mind. We only have a certain amount of bandwidth that we start Wing Chun with. But Wing Chun is meant to develop and build that bandwidth, that awareness. So don't be hard on yourself at first and think, oh, and get overwhelmed and think, oh, I'll never get this. Little bit at a time, okay? Little bit at a time. So I just want you to be aware of all the other things that are out there so that you know reasons for practicing it. You've got to have the reasons for practicing it, but just don't let yourself get overwhelmed. Seven, 8, 9, 10, 11. Okay, so let's take a look at the hands first, and then we'll go back and take a look at the feet after. First, we have the number, starting from the 7th move, we bring our foot back into the 8th position. And our hands come here. The right hand's forward and the left hand is in a Wu Sao. So this is just a piercing action. It looks like this from another angle here. And then from here we're going to move into the scissors gong Sao. The feet do what's called a Doigak Ma position. The left toe faces to the dummy. The left fingers face towards the dummy. I'm up here. My elbow is close to this elbow. My other elbow is then close to this elbow. I'm splitting them high and low, and my shoulders and my hips are facing the dummy, okay? Not over here. That's a common mistake people make, is going too far over that direction. But no, you want to come right here. This is number 9. Number 10 is an exhaust and a Wu. Drop this down. This drops straight on down from where it's at. Drop. And then, but don't give up your elbow as you drop. Don't drop out here. Drop this elbow here, and then Wu. So you've exhausted. Someone's pressing your hand down, and you're going to exhaust the hand, not exhaust the elbow. The elbow still points towards them. This is number 10. The Wu is here. Now, we're going to pivot the hips just a little bit more as we go to the 11th move. The lower arm goes into a dai bong sao, which means low bong sao, low wing arm. And the right arm goes into a tan sao. Keep your elbow in. This goes into the piercing of them. And you have what's called the Quan sao, which is the bong and the tan. Okay. So here are the feet from number 7. This comes back to the hanging stance in number 8. Number 9, this steps over and slides. So it goes over, slides. This is a Bilma stepping, Soger Bilma stepping, but yet at the same time, your Doigak Ma as you end. And your left toe is facing the dummy. Your right toe is parallel to your left foot facing over here. You have Kim Sut, which is basically keeping a connection between the legs, kind of a magnetic movement between the thighs. And your shoulders and your hips are facing the dummy. Don't go too far or too little. So here's how you'll know when you do that. When you entered in through number 7, what you should have done is follow this fence, or railing, right? Imagine this is like a railing that you're following to come in through number 7. Then simply bring one foot back. Then from here, slide the foot over and scoot this one. How do you know if you've gone too far? Here's a little way to check. Turn your other foot and see if you're in Kim Ma where you started. If you turn your foot and you happen to be over here, or you happen to be over here, then you just haven't gotten the right position. So again, footwork 7, 8, 9. Okay, right there. From 9 to 10, the feet don't change. Exhaust with the left hand, Wu comes to the right, and then we Quan sao, and the feet don't change. The hips turned a little bit into that bong sao so that we could lead with the left elbow, but overall the feet stayed the same. 7, 8,